Look, Hollywood made us believe it was just a matter of showing up in California, finding a gold nugget, and getting rich. Nonsense. Most prospectors went back home broke, if they made it back at all. The gold rush of 1849 was one of the most brutal chapters in American history. Violence between miners was routine. Chinese people worked like slaves and still had to pay an extra tax just for being Chinese. And the environment? Destroyed for decades. These 21 facts will show you what really happened. Subscribe to the channel and leave a comment. Number 1. John Sutter had an empire in California. Land, cattle, a brand new mill. Then in January 1848, one of his workers found some shiny little stones in the creek. It was gold. Sutter tried to keep it a secret, but you know how these things go. Within weeks, the whole country knew. More than 300,000 people flooded onto his land. They stole his cattle, wrecked his crops, and took over everything he'd built. The man who was sitting on the biggest gold discovery in American history died poor, trying until the very end to get compensation from the government. He never got a single cent. The gold rush made fortunes, but not for the guy who started it all. Number 2. What you're seeing here changed California forever. These guys came from everywhere, farmers from Missouri, fishermen from Boston, even immigrants from China, all chasing the same dream. The method was simple. Stick your hands in the icy mountain water and pan gravel all day long. Sounds easy, right? But here's the thing nobody mentioned in the newspapers back then. The water came straight from the Sierra Nevada snowmelt. We're talking temperatures that made your fingers go numb in minutes. A lot of them worked soaking wet from sunrise to sundown. Hypothermia killed more prospectors than fights or accidents. And the worst part? Most of them never found enough gold to even pay for the trip back home. Number 3. In 1850, when gold fever took over California, around 20,000 Chinese people crossed the Pacific chasing the same dream everyone had, getting rich. But here's the part the history books usually leave out. These guys worked just like any other miner. They dug, built canals, and did the heavy lifting. Except the California government created a special fee called the Foreign Miners Tax. And guess who had to pay it? Pretty much only the Chinese. We're talking $20 a month, a fortune back then. To put it in perspective, a regular worker made about $1 a day. So basically, almost their whole paycheck went just to that charge. It was a legal way to push those folks out of the mines without saying it out loud. Number 4. San Francisco in 1849 was total chaos. The city jumped from 1,000 to 25,000 people in just 12 months when the news about gold spread. Sailors ditched their ships in the harbor to run to the mines, and those abandoned boats turned into hotels, warehouses, and even makeshift jails. The problem is, nobody planned any of this. The city burned down 6 times in just a few years because the buildings were all wood and canvas, thrown up in a hurry. Every time a fire wiped everything out, they rebuilt even faster. It was a crazy cycle of destruction and starting over. The authorities could barely keep order in a place where everyone wanted to get rich overnight. That bay, packed with abandoned masts, became a symbol of an era when ambition moved crowds. Number 5. When gold was discovered in California in 1848, thousands of people rushed there looking for a fortune. The problem was, the law couldn't keep up with that pace. Towns popped up out of nowhere. No sheriff, no judge, nothing. Thieves took advantage of the chaos to do whatever they wanted. That's when groups of regular citizens decided to handle things their own way. They were called vigilance committees. They arrested suspects, held quick trials, and carried out the sentence on the spot. A lot of times that meant the gallows. In San Francisco, the 1856 committee grew to have thousands of members and publicly executed several men. Some say they kept order when nobody else could. Others argue it was just lynching dressed up as justice. One thing is certain. This mindset of taking matters into your own hands left deep marks on American culture. Number 6. At the height of the California gold rush, there was only one woman for every 20 men in the camps. That shortage created a situation that a lot of history books barely mention. Some of these women quickly realized they didn't have to mine to get rich. Cooks charged a fortune for a simple home-cooked meal, while others earned gold nuggets just for dancing a waltz with lonely miners. What's wild is that many of them managed to build up more wealth than the miners themselves, who spent months digging in the dirt. The official story has always romanticized the Old West, but the economic reality of these women tells a very different version of what happened. Number 7. Imagine water jets so powerful they could knock down whole mountains. That actually happened in California in the 1860s. Miners figured out they could use huge water cannons to blast gold out of hillsides instead of panning river after river. The problem was, nobody thought about the consequences. All that mud and rock poured down into the valleys, clogged rivers, and wrecked farms owned by people who had nothing to do with mining. Whole towns got hit with terrible flooding. Farmers were furious and took it to court. After years of legal fighting in 1884, a judge finally banned the practice. It was one of the first times the U.S. government told a powerful industry no because of environmental damage. Number 8. Levi Strauss arrived in California in 1853, right at the height of the gold rush. But while thousands were digging holes dreaming of getting rich, this German immigrant noticed something nobody else was seeing. Miners were wrecking their pants in weeks. The hard work tore up any fabric. So Strauss had an idea: use tent canvas to make pants. Later, he switched to a tough cotton called denim. The real game changer came in 1873, when his partner Jacob Davis suggested adding metal rivets to the pockets so they could handle the weight of tools. That simple fix created the most worn piece of clothing in history. The guy never found a single gold nugget, but he built something that's still around today. Sometimes the person selling the shovel makes more than the one digging. Number 9. Before the long tom, prospectors spent all day crouched over with a pan, washing dirt handful by handful. It was the kind of work that wrecked anyone's back. Then this wooden contraption showed up, basically a long trough with running water and slats at the bottom to catch the gold particles. The difference? One guy alone with a pan might process a few buckets of dirt a day. With a long tom, a small group could handle tons. That changed everything in the California gold rush in the 1850s. The prospectors who got there first and used this technology grabbed most of the easy gold. The ones who showed up later found the best spots, already picked clean. Number 10. Did you know there are more than 500 ghost towns scattered across the American West? When the gold ran out, people would just leave and abandon everything. Bodie, California, is a perfect example. In the 1860s, the town grew to almost 10,000 residents, with packed saloons and mines running day and night. But when the gold dried up, the population vanished within just a few years. The houses, shops, and even the dishes on the tables were left exactly where they were. Today, Bodie is still there, frozen in time, with dust covering furniture and windows broken by the wind. The government keeps it that way on purpose, in a condition they call arrested decay. It's like the whole town is a reminder of how fortune could show up and disappear overnight back then. Number 11. California, 1850s. When gold showed up in California, thousands of free black men headed there just like everyone else. A lot of them arrived before the big crowds and found good areas to mine. Some even got rich. But then the trouble started. The state created a special mining fee just for foreigners and non-white people, $20 a month, an absolute fortune back then. And it got worse. A 1850 law banned black people from testifying against white people in court. You know what that meant in real life? If a white man stole all the gold from a black miner, the victim couldn't even speak up in court. There was no way to prove anything. A lot of them lost everything they'd managed to build. Some were simply driven out of the mines by armed groups who knew nobody would pay for it. Number 12. In 1898, a fever swept across America. Gold had been discovered in the Klondike territory up in Canada, near Alaska. The news spread like wildfire, and around 100,000 people dropped everything to try their luck. The problem was, to get there, you had to face the Chilkoot Pass, a brutal climb at a 33-degree angle in the middle of an Arctic winter. Guys hauled almost a ton of supplies on their backs because Canadian police required it to let you in. A lot of people died from exhaustion, avalanches, or just gave up halfway. In the end, out of the 100,000 who started the journey, only 30,000 actually made it to their destination. And here's the detail most people don't know. Most of the ones who made it found absolutely nothing. The easy gold was already claimed. Number 13. When gold showed up in California in 1848, nobody asked native peoples if they were okay with it. In just a few years, land tribes had lived on for generations, turned into mining camps. Prospectors tore up whole hillsides, diverted rivers, and used mercury that poisoned the water. For native people, it wasn't just losing territory. It was watching sacred places where their ancestors were buried get destroyed with pickaxes. California's indigenous population crashed from around 150,000 to under 30,000 in just 2 decades. Many died from disease, others from hunger when the game disappeared, and some were simply forced out at gunpoint. This side of the gold rush rarely shows up in Western movies, but it happened right under the feet of the miners dreaming of getting rich. Number 14. In 1854, a miner in California ran into something that would change his life forever. A 195-pound gold nugget buried there, waiting for thousands of years. Just to give you an idea, that's about the weight of a grown man, except it was pure gold. During the gold rush, stories like this weren't as rare as you might think. Hundreds of huge nuggets were found back then, and most of them were melted down and turned into bars. Almost none survived intact. What would that nugget be worth today? Experts estimate somewhere around $4 to $5 million based on the current price of gold. But here's the detail most people don't know. Big nuggets like that are worth even more than their weight in gold because collectors will pay a fortune for them. Number 15. Imagine working for months in a mine under blistering heat, only to lose everything before sunrise. That's how it went in Old West saloons during the gold rush. Those places weren't just bars, they were traps. Games like Monte and Faro ran all night long, and the owners knew exactly what they were doing. A lot of dealers were pros who traveled from town to town, emptying the pockets of miners who were too exhausted to think straight. Gold that took weeks to find was gone in hours. Some historians estimate that a big chunk of the wealth pulled out of California ended up in the hands of professional gamblers, not the miners themselves. The house always won, and back then, nobody was watching anything. Number 16. Between 1875 and 1883, a masked thief terrorized Wells Fargo in California. Charles Bowles, known as Black Bart, had a peculiar method. He robbed stagecoaches alone, always on foot, and never fired a single shot. The detail that drove the police crazy for years? He left signed poems at the crime scenes. There were 28 successful robberies during the final stretch of the gold rush, when stagecoaches were still hauling fortunes in gold and cash along remote roads. Black Bart acted politely, apologized to his victims, and vanished into the mountains. Wells Fargo offered huge rewards, but he got away for 8 years. His capture came from a dumb mistake, a handkerchief with a laundry mark. When they caught him, they found out he was a respectable citizen of San Francisco. Number 17. Did you know that in 1850s California, more miners died fighting over land than finding gold? The truth is, there wasn't any real law in those camps. A guy would drive a stake into the ground and say, "This is mine." But if another guy showed up with a bigger gun, the story changed fast. The so-called claims were pieces of land anyone could stake out, but nobody agreed on the boundaries. The result, shootouts became routine. The camps made their own rules, and justice meant whatever the majority decided in the moment. Makeshift courts settled cases in minutes. Sometimes the loser got kicked out. Other times, hanged right there on the spot. The rush for gold brought wealth to a few and violence to many. Number 18. In 1852, 2 businessmen from New York had an idea that would change the West forever. Henry Wells and William Fargo started a company to solve a serious problem. How do you move gold from the mines in California without losing it all to bandits? The solution was simple but revolutionary. They built steel safes so tough they became legendary. Wells Fargo stagecoaches hauled fortunes along dangerous trails protected by guards armed with shotguns. But the business didn't stop there. The company also opened banks where miners could store their nuggets safely. Before long, Wells Fargo became the most trusted name in the West. Interestingly, many of the original safes were never cracked, even after decades of attempts. Some still exist today in museums, with bullet marks from the people who tried. Number 19. What a lot of people don't know is that the gold rush had a pretty dark side. Miners used liquid mercury to separate gold from dirt. It looked like magic back then. But that heavy metal went straight into California's rivers and creeks. In the 1860s, whole communities started noticing something weird. Fish showing up dead along the banks, and the water smelling different. And there's more. Miners who worked with mercury all the time started having tremors, memory loss, and strange behavior. People called it going crazy from mercury. It's estimated that tons of this poison were dumped into the environment during those years of gold fever. The price of wealth, my friend, can hit pretty hard sometimes. Number 20. Not everyone who showed up in California came to chase gold honestly. The Australians who landed in San Francisco in the 1850s carried a heavy past. Many were ex-cons, shipped from England to Australia's penal colonies. When news of gold reached them, they saw a chance to start over. The problem was they brought old habits with them. These guys set up in an area that became known as Sydney Town, a part of San Francisco the police avoided. They formed gangs called the Sydney Ducks and specialized in arson. They'd set whole blocks on fire and loot in the middle of the chaos. Things got so bad that regular citizens formed vigilante committees to take justice into their own hands. Number 21. Around 1860, something nobody expected happened. The gold just ran out. Thousands of men who dropped everything to get rich woke up one day and realized there was nothing left to dig for. The mountains were full of holes, the rivers were wrecked by Mercury, and the land wasn't good for anything anymore. A lot of them went back home empty-handed. Others stayed and became farmers because they didn't have a choice. The California that came after was built on top of that disaster. The towns that stayed standing only survived because they found another way to make money. The American West changed forever, but the cost was high. The real story is sitting in archives that hardly anyone looks at. Hollywood would rather show the adventure, not the day after. If this taught you something, hit like. If it surprised you, share it. And if you want more real history, subscribe.